everyone's a level IQ, but they just tripped up something.
Yeah, a buddy of mine actually works in a jail, and he said, well, they're not all here because they're smart.
Right.
So
That was exactly
that's,
what the house said.
it's really sad, that to me. I don't know. The older I've gotten, the more grace I want to show people, and the more I don't know.
How many high-level electors do you have? Genius level.
Yeah, swim off the island. You probably have a hard time even knowing who they are, right? Because the smart ones are good at hiding it, or?
Had one prisoner make a two-way radio out of a regular radio that he could buy from the prisoner store.
Wow.
And he figured out the frequency for the officer's radios, and he could listen to a radio
Wow.
there.
Wow.
Really? Yeah. A radio, a regular radio?
Regular radio.
Wow.
Yeah. On multiple radios.
Good morning, guys. How are you? We're about to pour copper epoxy.
Did you guys have towers?
We did, but then we were so short-staffed, we unmanned them, and we had an electrical fence. Yeah.
Rita, thanks for being here this morning. Good morning, Rita. Knock, knock. Who's there? Rita. Read a book and you might learn something. I don't know. That was like the first knock knock joke I ever learned in my life. I got really stupid jokes, Rita. I like your name though. Thank you, Jeanette. God bless you this morning. Good to see you all. So I think I was like 7 when I heard that. Say what?
Staff assault.
Oh,
Yeah. How often? Weekly. Was it weekly? Oh my goodness.
Daily.
Both male and female, or just male? Just male. We only have one female facility in Michigan.
we're 73 degrees right now, guys, and we are going to run this up. We're going to keep mixing till we get to probably about 105 before we pour. That's called an exothermic reaction that's taking place. I'm going to get some accent colors too, and I'm going to keep them mixing as well at the same time.
Familiarity? Yeah. Yeah, that's always.
Here, I'll help with these. I can help. Yeah. I'll be pouring shots here in a minute. Ooh, dude, that's beautiful. We should guess that heat. 73 to 76. Damn.
K2. You can order a ream of K2.
This here is Caribbean. Yeah, this is Caribbean. This is turquoise. So the darker is the turquoise. Two of my favorite colors go into the copper so nicely.
Video keeps locking up, but could be my internet. Oh.
Thank you guys for being here. Tell me what you guys are doing today. It's Tuesday. Are you guys having fun at work? Please comment. If you're on my page, I see 497 people. I want 497 comments. I don't expect that. But I'd love to know what you're doing today, where you're watching from. Where are you at? We got anybody from Zimbabwe? Laying in bed, just relaxing, chillaxing. That sounds nice. It was rainy this morning, but I did not have time to lay in bed. Oh yeah, it's not Indian.
They gotta get off
Topeka, Kansas.
Be careful not to itch yourself with an epoxy finger.
Thank you for what you did.
Topeka.
Darla's on break from work.
Darla, thank you for being here. I hope you're having a good day, Darla. Thank you, Chris.
Dealing with the worst of the worst. I would have gladly given them.
If I had hair, maybe I'd rock some feathers in it and stuff.
Showing the guns, I'm guessing.
Oh yeah, you guys are so.
Mary said took her friend to a laser eye appointment.
Laser eye appointment. God bless. That's awesome. My sister had that, and she went from being a blind little bat to all of a sudden seeing so much stuff. It was really cool. It made me so happy to see that. It literally changed her life, laser eye surgery. So good for you, and thank you for being such a badass to take your friend there, help him change their life.
Your accent cups are sorry.
My accent cups. Oh yes, I'm gonna go pour my. I'll pour soon too.
Now that's over familiar.
Yeah.
Especially to an innocent mind.
What are you guys talking about? My innocent mind? I think my CO said, you're the only guy, Levi, that can make a room at like 300-400 Marines blush. So,
Is this cabinet out here, is that epoxy as well, the sides of it, or is that paint?
that's paint, the ombre effect. Yeah, just paint. I was being goofy. We have a brand ambassador of ours, and she's always doing that, and it looks cool. So one day I was like, thought I'd be artistic too, and I bought some rattle cans. I don't think she was impressed. Vicky Schaefer, she's actually a really good artist.
Will you be anywhere close to Topeka, Kansas soon?
Yeah, it is.
Topeka, Kansas? I'm not going to be. That'd be awesome, though. Sounds beautiful. How is Topeka, Kansas? And catch a train. What do you guys?
Training.
Oh, training. I was like, catch a train. Lots of people say that. No.
Mary can't wait to see how he does. Thank you. She's in Florida.
Yeah, no kidding. Thank you, Mary. We'll be praying for him, actually. We'll do that every day. And we're in Florida. I got to figure out where our class is. I think it's Sarasota coming up, but in Florida, where we're going to be pouring a pretty big, like 3,000 square foot roof as a deck. It's got to be watertight, though, so it's really cool. So kind of a funner project.
It's raining here today.
Raining. Man, it's raining here really well. I like this. Rain across the U.S. Finally. I hope it stops all the stupid fires. Gets some of the smoke down.
We're in
Titsville? Titsville?
Central Florida.
Titsville? Sounds like a good place. Central Florida.
I'm saying it wrong for sure.
Let me see. Let me see if I can. Titsuville. You know what? Titsville. You know what? Sounds like a beautiful town. Sorry.
It never rains.
Please
in
forgive me.
August.
Never rains in August? Yeah, it's raining here like right as soon as I do an outdoor. Titusville. Oh, Titusville. Michael's here messing me up talking about tits.
So are we gonna pour this out at a certain?
Show me your Titus. Yeah, let's run this up to 105 too, because I want to pour 2 samples here, and we're going to go over countertops. We're going to go over my countertop slide here in a minute too, in a little bit.
So basically a gallon of this mix.
About 15 square feet. Usually I figure 15 square feet.
Every 8 feet.
No, about 15 square feet. So depending on the width of your countertop, I mean, you have 25 inches on some, so you'd be about 7, something like that. And but really, like, make sure that's a 25 inch, not a 32, or a bathroom 21 or 18 or.
Trying to figure out how much I'm gonna need.
Oh, for your countertops, yeah.
Brought all my measurements.
Pour, and now that's the heavy side. But remember, you got your edge, you've got your backsplash. So make sure you account for anything if you.
Plan on cutting all the back.
Okay, well, that's what we're gonna go over too here in class. So. Cutting this backsplash off. It's exactly what we're going over.
Someone said aloha. What substrate is
Aloha.
MDF? Mahalo.
I usually do MDF. I've built most all my stuff out of MDF, and if I'm worried about any kind of moisture underneath the substrate, like I'll squeegee the backside just really thin and cross roll it with a foam roller with the epoxy, and it'll be completely encapsulated and be very protected. And MDF's a lot more resistant to moisture than people think. So. As long as you're installing it properly, but you can route really nice edges, and it's just, I think MDF is probably one of the easiest things to fabricate. What are you laughing at? Michael gives me faces here behind the camera. I can't see. He's like, I don't want to make Levi cry, so we won't read that comment.
No, they just said CDDDD.
CDDDD. Is that a rap song?
Vicky said good morning.
I'm gonna release my CD. Hey, Vicky. Good to see you. Vicky from yesterday. I remember Vicky. Vicky, God bless you this morning.
Jeanette sending us chilies.
Jeanette chilies? Dude, I love spicy stuff. I like spicy stuff. Somebody's from Titsville, and there's spicy chilies. Everything's, it's a good Tuesday.
Oh my gosh. 25 chilies.
That wasn't cheap.
25 chilies? That better not cost you money. Don't waste money on me, guys. Send me a love or a heart or a follow, but you don't have to spend money on me on TikTok. You guys are too awesome.
Are you doing a class in Utah?
Class in Utah? Where in Utah should I do a class? I'm in Colorado, so I kind of feel like I kind of feel like if you're a Mormon trying to escape, you'd want to come over to Grand Junction, Colorado. I think the Mormons come over here so they can smoke weed and buy alcohol. I don't know. So, if it was St. George and you guys had a place to teach a class, I'd probably think about St. George. So, but like Salt Lake, just come over to Grand Junction. You'll love our facility. And like today, we're gonna go pour a restaurant. We're gonna do an ice cream shop. So, dude, we need to go live there. So, who wants to see a live of an ice cream shop floor? It's like 2,000 square feet or something too. So,
Yeah, we should have service, right?
yeah, I think so. Okay, I'm mixing up my resin to get to temperature. So I'm trying to get, and I'm splattering it all over. I'm trying to be about 105 degrees. What's that?
Green check, yes. Jeanette said that would be fun.
Where? What would be fun? The floor? Oh, yes, we will. I'm like, what? What's fun? I forget what question I asked 2 minutes ago. We have such a good class here today, too. So, what are your guys' temperatures at? 78? Somebody's an overachiever. Yeah, I'll do a tour really quick. I'm going to leave my stuff mixing here. I'm going to do a quick tour with you guys if you want to let your stuff set for a moment and just let it exotherm. I'm going to kind of show you guys around the building a little bit, and you guys can come along here. I'm going to show you some of the different surfaces that we do and just answer any questions about those.
Table.
Oh yeah, somebody pays attention. So yeah, the table here, so a lot of people want to know how it's built. This would be similar to a countertop, except this is one additional sheet in thickness. This is 6 sheets of 3/4 inch MDF. And I just wanted, since it's a 16-foot boardroom, I wanted it to be, or a boardroom table rather, I wanted it to be a little bit thicker and more just look substantial. So I think adding that extra 3/4 inch of thickness made it look a little better, feel a little sturdier, be more rigid. So I just overlapped the seams, glue it and screw it. And I always screw each individual sheet from the center out. I don't want air entrapped under there. And one thing that just blows me away is how many guys don't know that when you put 2 sheets together and you run a screw through one, it kind of separates them a little, and then you can kind of countersink them back together. And if you don't do that, and either like kind of overdrive your screw end to pull the sheets back together or countersink it, you need to clamp it or something like that. But you can't clamp the center, so you need to know how to run a screw through. So for every like 3/4 inch doubled up 3/4 inch sheet for 1.5 inches, you'll run an 1 3/8 screw. So just get 1 3/8 screws will be what you'll use all the time. And make sure they're not the notched self-tappers and that they're not drywall heads. So get like a good Torx bit, coated, full length threaded screw. Yeah, and I wouldn't do the self-cutter heads, only because I noticed that when you're down to 1 3/8 and you're trying to countersink that head down, usually it's not quite enough thread on there to really pull into the second sheet, so you'll end up stripping on the top sheet. And the only problem with that is if you have glue down on your whole table and you're gluing and screwing and you leave a few little gaps for 15 minutes, not a little bit, not very long, and you come back and check it, now that glue is dried, now you're shimmed apart. Your whole table, I mean, you're never going to get that correct. You have a wave in your table. So even when you put the glue down, I'll roll it really quick with a roller, but then I'll slide my sheet a little bit, slide it back and forth, make sure all my air gaps are out of there, and then really just start screwing down the center of it. I'll usually pin a corner and a corner of my sheet so I know I'm really squared up, but then I'll just run my center out. And I know it sounds dumb, but I'm a little overly picky with that, because that'll make if you're doing countertops in houses and stuff like that and you're double stacking them, especially raised bars. I've seen a lot of like tall raised bars where you're like, man, I can see down that bar 35, 40 feet. We had like a 65-foot bar in our last shop, and man, if it was any ripples in it, you're gonna see it. So those little details, just how good you do little details. And I would never run through all 3 sheets. I'd just run through like 2 at a time. And then glue and screw your second sheet. Always leave your excess coming out. And one of the best ways I finish off my edges, just so I have a really like smooth edge that goes right from my top into my edge, and something I like is Bondo. And the reason I like Bondo is there's no moisture in it. So a lot of people like to use spackling, and they'll say, oh, it hardens. Well, it hardens, but it doesn't dry. So a lot of your, like it's raining today, if you're using a moisture cured product, this would really slow down the evaporation of your product and make it like, to where you wouldn't want to pour epoxy on it. So it might like cure to where it feels hard, but you'd encapsulate epoxy over the top and you'd have issues and cracking and stuff. So
The MDF would absorb the product probably different on the edge opposed to Bondo.
yeah, and I just noticed people have issues with like spackling. The other thing is like Bondo, you can control your the speed you want it curing. There's the new fast setting Bondo that's pretty cool, and you can sand it pretty quickly. And the only thing is I just really work that into my edge. I'm not trying to leave a coating on my edge by any means. I'd rather do 2 coats, just 0 excess product across there, just super thin, than try to create a big thick spackle. And then just block sand. If you're gonna over sand it, block sand. So I always say sand first, apply your Bondo, sand, apply Bondo, sand. It sounds like a lot of steps, but you're applying Bondo twice and sanding twice, or 3 times rather. But I mean, you could sand this table all the way around in 3-4 minutes. So, I mean, it's not, especially if you didn't apply too much Bondo. What'll get you in trouble is if you apply too much. But now it's curing hard, and you don't have moisture evaporating out. The time I do go to spackling is for my chiseled edges, and we'll show you the coffee bar over here has a chiseled edge, and that is 45-minute mud. And I always say to use the 45, not the 20 or the 5, and I used to use whatever, and I didn't really care. But I noticed you just need longer for the edge to set up, and I'd rather come back 45 minutes, an hour later, and be able to have, because now it has a longer period of time where you can take and crumble that edge off properly. Whereas if it's 5 minutes, it starts crumbling just perfect to make that chiseled edge after you spackle it on, and then by the time you get back around to yourself, you're just like struggling and it looks way different. So get a longer setting mud, and I mix it 50-50 with plaster of Paris. Thanks to like the sweetest old lady I know that actually showed me this. She's an expert like concrete countertop finisher, like really expert woman. And she showed me that, and it's like the best way to make a chiseled edge. And don't use the construction plaster because it gets all creamy, and then you just get this smeared looking edge. So, and then one thing I'll use a lot of times is a flapper wheel to shape edges and stuff like that too, if you want to make like a natural looking live edge or something.
When you say plaster, do you mean plaster of Paris?
Yeah, exactly, like a craft plaster. Just go to Hobby Lobby or whatnot, and almost all their craft plasters, they're more sandy, so you can really crumble them, the sand in them. And just remember to mix that, and if you want something more crumbly, put less of your gypsum powder, your hot mud, your joint compound, and more of the plaster. And if you want it to be a little creamier because it's like falling off, go to a little more of the joint compound. And I always kind of prime that with a real wet mix first that I'll mix up just like paint almost with that plaster, because that's going to soak into your surface, into the edge of that MDF, and really get that troweled on surface to bond to it. Just like if you're stuccoing or laying brick, like nothing sticks to dry brick. So
You want to make
What
sure
did you
it's
use to
not.
finish the underside?
the underside of this, I didn't finish. This is just totally unfinished MDF under here. The other one out there, we actually poured white marble and then flipped it over and then poured it. So we just did matching edges and then sanded our drips. Nope.
I was gonna say on the speed mud, make sure you don't use any warm water.
Oh, yeah, on that, yeah, yeah, hot water will activate your, the like 20-minute mud will activate way faster with hot water. It's just like epoxy.
How do you make it look this way? You mean these different shades of colors?
This here we rolled a base coat, and I think we have a video of this probably, and then we just poured little veins back and forth down it and then just rolled it and torched it. Yeah, yeah.
But this is covered 3 times.
No, not on here. I think I just sanded and poured this, so
Found it on YouTube. And I saw the Be Dangerous.
yeah, it's fun.
Yeah.
I was watching.
Be Dangerous was first. Then he did some like Blair crawl thing where it was real. And now that. And I like that one best.
Now, a lot of people want to know about this table. This was made for Madison Rising, who was a rock band that he went around playing like the best national anthem you've ever heard and stuff. So I built this for him because we were doing Battle of the Badlands documentary, and I wanted that as the intro song to the documentary. And then I found out he was like in all these legal troubles with the song, and he'd said I could use it, and I found out he didn't have legal rights to it, and I built him a table. So we got a hold of the owner, and the owner's like, "Oh, I love you guys." Like he like talked to us and heard our story and what we were doing, and then he's like, "Well, I don't need a table. You can use a song." And then he passed away without sending us the email or any of that. And Nobody, he didn't will the rights to anything, so now there's just a rap song at the beginning, which is just as good. But so I have this table here, but there's a lot to be learned here because now this is 4x8. We cast this exactly on a single sheet of melamine, so a 4x8 sheet of melamine, and I put PVC trim around the edges. This is about 4.5 inches thick. And there's some limiting factors. A lot of people come in here and they want river tables built or some table like this, and they have no clue, like just off the top of your head, who thinks this is like between like 20 gallons and who thinks this is more like 60 gallons? This is like 110 gallons. So the 110 gallons of resin, and even with all this aggregate, so there's about $7,500 worth of decommissioned items, I can't say on TikTok, in here. They're all totally inert. And even as much product as this was boxes and boxes of stuff, it really didn't volumize or offset the volume. I had to pour as much as you'd think. A lot of these weapons are hollow and stuff, so they were really absorbing it. A lot of these casings here are totally hollow, so they're not really offsetting the amount of resin poured. So there's just, and then there's an RPG7 in the center, and that's very thick, so that forces you to pour pretty thick, which is why it's machined off eventually, because I wasn't going to do 2 more inches. But there's all these little factors when you think, oh, I'm going to do a fun table. So I would say, what's the size of my plank? And like, what size do you want the table to be? And now, how much wood do I have? Like, you guys see the table in here, he wants that 42 inches wide and 8 feet long, and he brought like 14-foot long planks. And they were very wide, so like I put the table as wide as he said the max width was, and it was barely even a river in the middle. So there's very little epoxy, but he's probably spending like $2,500 on those planks of wood. So you just kind of got to balance that. Like, how much does my aggregate, my wood, my gears, the African burl table we have over here? You really got to balance, like, how thick are they and what voids is it going to leave? Because a lot of people say like, oh, I have a 4-inch slab, like, isn't that going to look awesome? And I'm like, well, you're going to be pouring 4 inches of epoxy, and if you'd like a 2-inch table, your table might be half the cost, so, or way less. Even the wood's cheaper. So yeah, this right here is just over 1,000 pounds. So it becomes like a major thing. You'd need a granite dolly to haul it and stuff. So for as cool as it is, and then the other thing too, I see a lot of people come to class and they want to pour and build a lot of the crazy tables and stuff like this. And say, I know one really badass guy. I'm not going to name his name, but he's a really cool dude. And he's poured a lot of river tables and really pretty tables, and he gets a lot of tables that people buy from him, but nobody buys the tables he makes. People always have him build a custom table. So I feel like past like maybe showcasing your work with some of your own stuff that maybe you can use, don't go building a bunch of just tables that you're spending, you know, $2,000 to $10,000 on. I mean, this right here, if you get no discount, I mean, 110 gallons of resin and $7,500 worth of ammo and whatnot, I mean, you're talking $17,000 for a table. You can't just have a lot of these sitting around, because somebody will say, oh, I love that. Can you do that with my Chevy logo? Or something douchey, like, I don't know, whatever. some hillbilly shit. So, can I say hillbilly on TikTok? Is that derogatory? So, yeah. So. Now the floors we're doing are going to be a little crazier color this afternoon than this, but I'm excited to actually pour them. Our floor right here, I don't know who's been following along. I get a lot of questions on this, but this is 22 coats now on this floor, so that's why you can park our heavy forklift on it or whatever. So, but this is 300 square feet, and I think, if I'm not wrong, we're pouring 2,000 square feet this afternoon, so it should be a fun pour. We just have to get it to where it's right and be a huge help to them. Let's check our temperatures here.
Hey, so some of your wall products have you on your walls. Look pretty badass.
Yes, sir. That is like, I'll tell you, walls are like I am just loving doing wall epoxy lately. It's been so fun. I just went out to California and did some walls. I'd actually done a little bit wrong on some of the walls, and I had to go fix some pieces because I didn't prep properly. So, and the guy still loves me, and he's an amazing customer. But I did, I think, 9 total showers at his house, and my God, they looked so badass when I left. I mean, they are so perfect, and all black marble. So it's like black marble with just really light white streaking in it, really simple, and then it's all satin down to 1,000 grit, so it's all really matted and muted. So I'll show you guys a video of it here in a sec.
Do the floor and everything?
Yeah, oh yeah. Like this house, we did all the floor because it was all tile, tub decks and everything into showers, all the tile, you know, on the decks, on the walls of all that. And all the countertops were granite, but like an ugly old granite, so we poured all that.
Make a new base, or did you go over existing?
Poured over all the existing. So yeah, and it's amazing. So we did all white marble floors and all black marble walls. So black marble countertops and walls and white marble floors.
Countertops, you see a lot of the false edges, you know, where they, instead of using 2 sheets, they'll do a false edge.
Right.
I'm not a big fan of that. What's the additional expense for your average?
A couple, $2-3 for the second per square foot for that second stack. I'll go into the size. What's our temps at? And I can do yeah, I'll do the countertop prep right now. We'll get right through our, yep, I'm right along there with you. I'm 93 on this, but all these are 85s.
I'm at 100.
You're at 100? You're at 105, we'll pour too. So if you're at 105, you're such an overachiever. Yes, ma'am.
You're pouring on top of tile.
We're gonna be going over exactly over that right now. So a lot of you guys want to pour over Formica, and I'll just say if I was operating a business doing this, I probably would shy away from pouring over Formica, except in profitable, like if it's a rental units. I mean, if you know somebody that's turning like 20 rental units a year and they're just never going to pay for like new countertops and all they want you to do is go over Formica, that's fine. But I always try to hit on perceived value. And I don't care how nicely you pour over Formica. I think it looks really cheap when you just go right over the existing backsplash, especially when you know you're saving maybe $4 or $5 a square foot. Now, the cheapest granite you can get is like $60, $70 a square foot. Like, I don't see a point in saving $5 and seeing that backsplash, and now you're limited to everything. Now you want to cut that backsplash off. The issue becomes the fact that most of these backsplashes, the countertop doesn't go to the wall, so now you have to scribe this in, except no walls are square. So you'll have a very uneven scribe. You're not going to scribe a piece of MDF or anything, so you're going to be filling it with something that you hopefully aren't dripping into your cabinets and stuff, which is a real thing to think about. Then trying to sand any kind of Bondo or patch and fill, because you need to be watertight. You're pouring epoxy on it. To sand any kind of patch and fill or anything like that up against your wall, you have to be pretty thoughtful with a DA, or you're just bouncing off your wall all the way down. Or all you do, pull your drawers out, grab a screw gun, pull your your screws out of your corner blocks, shut off your angle stops. I'd say water's your first priority in a kitchen removal. So when you're removing countertops, always shut your water off first. Separate your lines or shut your lines off and watch and monitor that faucet is not dripping with it turned all the way on. So turn your faucet all the way on and then shut your water off. And don't watch it for 10 seconds. Leave it doing, dry that sink out, dry the faucet out, and make sure that when you come back in 10 minutes and do everything, start masking or whatnot, that faucet still has not dripped. And if it has dripped, then you either need to use that faucet underneath the sink as a secondary valve in a bucket and monitor that is not dripping in the bucket when you're using that connected to the angle stops. If you want to disconnect it from the angle stops, legally on video, go get a plumber, but if you're doing it yourself in your own home or whatever, go grab the caps. I always have the copper caps, so I can just throw them on different angle stops. You should always have a few shark scripts valve in case you have a catastrophic failure, and you should always know where your main shutoff to the house is. Go to your water heater first, and if you can't find it there, make sure you know where your street valve is, because you shouldn't be touching any kind of water without knowing how to shut off your water. And I would shut it off and verify that it's truly off before I pour, because like a drip every 2 seconds into a 5-gallon pail is going to fill that pail in like literally 3 or 4 hours. Well, you leave that overnight, you have 50 gallons on your floor, on your hardwood, and all the stuff you weren't wanting to replace. So I'm really overly careful with safety, but as long as you remove that sink, now that you're all scared to ever touch a sink, it's very simple, and it usually takes you 15 minutes. Pull your countertops off, go down to Lowe's or Home Depot, have them cut 3/4 inch MDF to the width you want on a panel saw, and now you're not struggling with a table saw or a track saw or a skill saw with a guide or anything like that. You can just come right into your kitchen and drop the sheets down, and then like you're saying, to double stack them. I love that. You have a really sturdy platform. It's way easier to spend the $4 than try to shoot like $4 per square foot for that extra sheet. Now you have a solid countertop. It feels more solid than most of any Formica countertop or anything like that with a false edge. You really will notice it. You'll never run into drawer spacing issues like you see right here. This wouldn't work with like a European style drawer face that goes right to the top of your cabinets or anything like that. And you're in a lot of houses that have that, so don't expect false edges. And when you run those, they have to come back to the inside of your cabinets. Now, the one place I do like a false edge is on my undermount sink, and sometimes I'll just go right to a false edge on the span of sink, right where my undermount sink is for that whole cabinet. And the being is that I think it's nicer when you already have a nice big deep stainless steel sink to not have it all the way in the bottom of an 1.5 inch countertop, to have it a little, I don't know, after seeing probably like 1,200 of them, I feel like it's just cleaner and classier to have a really nice decorative edge on a single piece of MDF, and I feel like customers like that more. And then you never run into very many issues, it seems like, with mounting your undermount sink up under the cabinet. You always have extra space up out of the way, because you do have the lips of that sink that you need to think about, and your mounting hardware and stuff. So I've seen that if I'm just really careful and I do a minimalistic false edge right in front of the sink, I have plenty of room to mount my sink and not run into like any kind of flush mount sink problems. So balance that and the perception of value. I feel like when anybody walks in a house and says, oh, you coated your countertops, I mean, what's the value of that? You can have an epoxy spray guy go out there and do it for $400 or $500, right? Some cheap stuff. You can buy this whole kit to pour a really beautiful countertop for $400 or $500 in a big kitchen, but you can charge $55, $65, $75 a square foot all day because you're giving an actual solution, especially if you're going over tile. And tile countertops are something that there's a massive need for, because in the industry of construction, there really isn't a solution for tile countertops because nobody wants to remove them. You have tile set to backer, set to plywood usually, that's screwed into your face frame, and usually concrete's rotted off a few drywall head screws or whatnot. So it's very uncommon that you can really safely remove tile without damaging your base cabinets. So a lot of guys will walk out, like you get granite shops that'll just say no, and the yeses they have are just so astronomical because they know the risk of damaging those cabinets. And so that is where I believe in solving a problem for somebody. We can go in and trowel our non-sag epoxy, the same stuff we have on the walls here, which is exactly what I was saying I did on my way to Denver the other day. I troweled epoxy for probably took me 45 minutes. Most of my time was setting up, masking, and cleaning for the day, and it was less than 2 hours in the house the first day. Came back and poured in about 2 hours. So I had about 4.5 hours maybe into the whole job, and I was able, it was like 50 some square feet of tile, troweled epoxy out over the tops, came back, sanded everything, squared it all off, made sure all my edges and corners were clean. I caulked a few little like weird gaps and whatnot, made sure my masking was really clean. Poured my epoxy at like 110 degrees, which wasn't somebody at 100 already?
Yeah, we're at 105.
You're at 105, yeah. If you're at 105, we got to pour. So, but yeah, it turned into a 4-hour job, and that when you're charging, you know, $55, $65 a square foot, you can make good money, but you have to have the perception of value or the solution. And the thing is that was a tile countertop. They really have no solution in the house. So if you're trying to make profit, I just really believe in solving people's problems. And I don't think pouring over Formica really is the, yeah, the tile. But yes.
So with that said, did you sand it before so it
I used the non-sag epoxy like we do on the wall, and I grouted everything in. That's what I'm saying. I used that to coat the tile to create my shape and my substrate, right? And then I have a solid countertop, and we have a video on it too. We've done a few tile countertops like that. And then I have my base that I'm able to pour my countertop over. And one cool thing with tile is a lot of times you only have like a 3/4 inch nominal piece of trim here on the edge, so you don't actually have a proper overhang. You can go down and buy a piece of casing or baseboard and shoot it on with any edge profile you want, and just use an 18 gauge nail gun, shoot it right to that edge. And now you have your proper overhang. It's really clean, so you get a good bond to it. And you have any edge profile the customer chooses, basically.
It's 130.
130?
Yeah.
Oh. This is? This was colder than the other. I know what I'm going to do. Maybe not. Something's cooking in there. You guys, you'll have plenty. It's only a square foot. You can share. You'll be such a team. Yeah, so spread your stuff out, and I'm going to come by, and I'm going to pour. Instead of pouring it into cups and then back out of cups, I'm going to pour your accents right on for you. Because this isn't going to be like a veiny, perfect pattern or something. This is going to be just art. Okay, guys. It's going to be random, and don't stress it. And wait for all three colors. Did you wait a little long?
I did.
You got more in your cup? How hot was yours?
106.
Oh, that's not too bad. That'll work out well. That's not going to be.
Yeah, mine was 104.
And I'll bring you guys two other colors here.
What if the backsplash goes up to the uppers?
If the backsplash goes up to the uppers, you can either go right up against it or you can do a backsplash over the top of it. So I trowel a lot of that same epoxy that we fill in the tile with. We'll trowel a lot of that right up the wall too and do an actual wall epoxy. So.
James said, good morning, it's raining.
Good morning, James.
Get outside.
Dude, it's raining for everybody. You know what? That's the day it rains. We just started an outdoor job here, and glad we have other options for the day. Glad there's an ice cream shop to go to. Yuri, good to see you here, man. I hope you're having an awesome day. There's a good installer right there. Anybody, if you're in the Denver area and you need a badass, check out Yuri here on the page. Just very randomly leave this mixed. Sorry all these pores are coming out shaped like wieners. I didn't mean to do that. So. Yeah. Yeah. It's not intentional. All right.
James just started his job on Monday.
Oh, James? Well, you know what? I hope you get good weather, man. Once you get it nice and level, lightly torch it with a metallic. Do not over torch it. Don't over torch it, but torch it. It'd be better to torch it a few times, like give it a few minutes to rest, torch it again in 5 minutes or something like that, than to try to like burn it all at once, because when you're warming it up, it's just gonna let all that air kind of relax out of that powder. But just give it time. Don't melt your piece or anything like that. I see a tendency to way overheat stuff.
Do you want us to use our brushes? Like you're using a roller?
Yes, just brush it out randomly, just like he's doing. Don't ever light your piece on fire till you're at your own shop. And then be super careful. No, don't ever do it.
All right, Dad, do as I say, not as I do.
That's all right. Now, don't be afraid to add. You already have right here some of the gold, which is very similar to what's in here. So don't be afraid to spray a little gold down and give yourself a little bit of just light hue of an accent. And you have charcoal, and charcoals are really. I like charcoal personally because a lot of times people want some kind of accent or whatnot, but they're not sure if you don't need a red or a blue or a green. Just go with this, and you get all kinds of like shadowing that looks so much better in your piece, and you're not adding another color. Totally different dimension, just with a little bit of charcoal. Thanks guys for joining us today. I hope you all are having a good day.
She loves the sailing.
Dude, I love the sailing too. I lost them. I did something boring and they all bounced. Okay, a little bit of gold. Did I lose them all on the tour? Oh. Super simple to make these copper patinas look really good. I'm gonna do a little more charcoal onto the top. And maybe some transparent. Mostly just your gold and charcoal are the only ones I was wanting to see. Nothing else will really show.
That green doesn't show?
No, it only shows on a really dark background. Translucent colors, remember? All the translucent colors really only show on a dark, dark background. I love that selling through there. I'm gonna just leave it like that.
Yeah, they said the depth is amazing.
It does look so good. I feel like this is how you do a countertop and really can't disappoint.
Here we go.
I'm gonna do like a, that sounds good, James. I'd like to, white, green, gold, we should mess around with those colors too, see if we can, I'm sure I can make it look terrible in one way or another. Like a gold, like a rusted vein through here. Something a little patinaed looking. I'm going a little heavy with my liquid in one spot because I want to show how if you have a total pooled alcohol with metallic colors as it dries, it leaves you like a dry lake bed effect. You can get really cool on here if you just don't touch it and let it evaporate on its own. So through here where I sprayed real heavy, I should get a really neat, just natural effect. Where is that? A little more charcoal through the center. James, you're probably kicking ass, dude, but I'll try. Here we are. I'm just gonna let this dry now because we gotta get the effect. That's like half a gallon. You guys see how many air bubbles are popping into your alcohol as you spray it? That's, yeah. So alcohol is very efficient at popping air bubbles and helping work your piece. I'd say it's just as good as a torch in a lot of instances. Now that we have all this alcohol down, we should not torch. Yes. I want mine to evaporate and do like a lake bed effect. So,
And then melt.
right. So just remember with your tile countertops, you can shoot any edge onto them you want to just by using a piece of trim and shooting it right to usually the existing piece of trim that's already on there. And on your other common tile countertops that have kind of that weird little drip edge piece of tile, it's not drawn exactly correct, but you get what I'm saying here. Usually these come off very easy because they were put on with the same mortar that you had on the horizontal surface too. So all that expansion and contraction, half of them already have been glued back on or something in an old kitchen. So just go around and knock these off. And usually your base layer here is a piece of plywood that they cut. So you have, once you knock that off, you usually, most tile countertops, you have no overhang at all. So go down and get a piece of casing because that's pretty thick for an overhang. Make sure the drawer spacing works, that it's a thickness you want for your edge, and shoot it with your gun right into the front edge of that plywood. And do not shoot it high. You're not trying to create a big dam that you have to fill up with epoxy or anything like that. Shoot it level. So take a level that's, you know, at least 2 or 3 feet long in that kitchen so you can go out over the edge and over the edge of that tile. And I'm going over looking for high tile, find that high tile, and kick that piece of trim up to where that's, you know, I want just that trim to create a pretty level or at least even countertop. If I have a slight slope in my whole kitchen, I'm gonna go with it. I'm not gonna try to level everything and have a 2-inch thick countertop at one end and 3/4 of an inch thick at the other. So, I mean, you can still pour with a little bit of angle, but you want everything to look really good and that trim to be really flat. If you look down it, you don't want it to be wavy or anything. So, very easy to do this. Get your piece of casing and make sure it has a profile that you actually like on it because it is very simple. Now, if you're going to be measuring kitchens, grab your phones out. I always say, like, when you're bidding jobs, it's kind of like seeing a girl or a guy for the first time, and you hope you get that second date. You're at the home show, and they say, yeah, sure, come on out. But I see so many contractors, they get that first appearance, and then they show up, and they don't know how to measure. They show up without a tape. They don't know any of the details to actually figure out what they're looking at. So be professional, know how to measure countertops quickly, efficiently. What I would generally do is I have a few ways to do this. I do have the new, what's that new tool I'm using, which is amazing. I just measured 10,000 square feet outdoor concrete. I'll show you guys all an outdoor tool that's amazing to measure large, really complex patios and stuff this afternoon. I'll show you. But in a kitchen, draw yourself out your kitchen countertops on your iPad or graph paper or whatever you want. Snap a few good photos. Leave your tape measure open in the back so you can answer some questions off that. You get measurements if you're not on the job site. And then just understand how to do simple math. So if you guys, who here can give me a square footage here? And this is all done in inches. Do you guys want a simple way to do it? If you notice, I don't do 3 feet here and then 8 feet here, but then 42 inches here. I do everything in inches. How many square inches are in a square foot? 144. So go ahead and do this. 108 plus 96. What do you have? I'll do the math. I don't think anybody in here. You probably don't use like phones or anything. 96 plus. I usually make every class do this. And this is the thing, if you're going to bid a job, I'd get my phone out and practice this. So you have 204 linear inches of countertop here. That is all 36 inches wide, right? So you have 7,344 square inches, right? Divided by 144? 51. So you got 51 square feet right here, right? You got 120 linear inches, so you got 120, 60 plus 42. You got 222 linear inches of countertop here, right? Times 25 inches depth, 5,550 square inches divided by 144. You have 38 square feet here, right? So you have 38 square feet, 51 square feet of countertop. Super simple to figure that out, right? Did you guys catch that? I did all my linear inches down on, I added everything that was 36 inches wide together. If this was 32 and that was 36, I would have split them up. But everything that's similar, I add the lengths together, multiply it times the width, divide the inches, and you have your square feet. So it's a really simple math. Down here, you just, all your linear inches, no matter how far that is if it's the same depth, multiply it times your 25 inches, divide by 144, you have your 38 square feet. Very common, you have to get like a backsplash measurement afterwards. As long as you have your pictures, like you said, and you're like, oh yeah, I see that the upper cabinets are pretty standard. And I mean, I've been in a few thousand homes, and I will say that most 99% of homes, you have 18 inches from your the top of your finished countertop to the bottom of your upper cabinet, 18 inches. So a lot of customers, this has happened where you drive 2 hours to go bid a big job. They say, I'm not interested in the backsplashes. You don't get a measurement on the backsplashes exactly because you don't want to offend somebody because they're already sure they have somebody, and they call you and say, please do it. Very simple. You have 36 inches, right?
20.75.
You have 36. What's 27? What's that?
20.75, because you gotta take 25 inches off.
What is this? Where
So
at?
you're taking 25 inches off, because you're really only doing from here down, right?
What do you mean?
Because you already got this 25 from here to here, so.
Yeah, this
You're
here.
just doing from here to here.
Yeah, but that's I did 108.
So you
Plus
take 25
96.
inches off though, right?
No, because this stops right here.
Oh, okay,
Yeah, that's a separate piece of
I
countertop.
screwed it up.
Oh,
I
okay.
thought you were clear over to here.
Oh no, no.
My bad.
Yeah, right here. Nope. So so right here, if you're trying to figure out your backsplash, it's very simple. You know a backsplash is going to go in here. So you got 36 plus 120, right? Plus you have your additional 25 down this side, right? This is something people miss a lot of times, right? Plus 25, plus 60. 99% of slide-in stoves, 30 inches wide, plus 42. You have 313 linear inches times 18 inches for your height of a backsplash if it's to code. 5,634 divided by 144. You have 39. So you have 40 more square feet of just backsplash. So if you're bidding very much down the middle, you have, say we're at 50 bucks a square foot. You're not charging much at all. You just added $2,000 to your job. And you can either trowel your epoxy, if that's over tile countertops, you can trowel wall epoxy directly onto that backsplash while you're fixing your grout lines on that. Take 2 or 3 days, come back and sand and do it's a process. You can look at the videos. You can build, one thing I love to do, build my backsplashes on 1/4 inch MDF, pour them all, have the customer say, yes, I love that pattern. And that's when we're in here and I see you guys doing the white marble, the black marble, and you guys are like, well, I just like to mess around and do my own thing and go on, and it's going to be complex as hell. Well, when you're doing a set of backsplashes and the customer says, I love that, and you go set them in place and then you pour the base countertops up to them, you don't need to be matching your veining together to look like it's cut out of one sheet, but it better look like it's the same type of white marble, that it's not out of a quarry on the other side of the world. So that's where pour your white, mix however much black in, swipe it in with a brush, keep your veins simple, like keep your process simple and keep it repeatable. So when you're making samples, I mean, a lot of times if I was doing this for a customer, I probably would have spent about 3 minutes on the sample and made sure that I'm done with it, because I would say, I would try to plan better. If I couldn't get it in 3 minutes and maybe I'd spend longer, I'd be like, all right, what did I do wrong so I could plan, so I could do this on a huge countertop no matter the size. So just be thoughtful of that. But very simple to get your measurements, but just have this down, practice in your own home if you need to. Because I've seen guys go out and they're like 40 minutes trying to measure some of these countertops and they think there's 4,000 square feet in this kitchen or something of countertops. And you're like, oh, I've had people tell me like, hey, here's my measurements, and they'll tell me the measurements and they're so far off from what even is possible.
Linear inches, add up all your total linear, and then divide it by.
Just length times width, and keep it all in inches, no matter what it is. Length times width divided by 144, and that's for countertops, because countertops are good to do in inches. Floors, always just feet. So, and I'll usually, if I'm bidding a job, I'm always, with the new bidding tool, I get exact square feet on floors. It's pretty sweet. But if I'm measuring a floor out, I'm usually just going between like 1 foot and 1/4 of feet, and I'll do like 1 1/4, 1 1/2, 1 and whatever. I mean, especially if you're bidding 9,000 square feet or something like that, I want to make sure that I'm accurate within an inch or two, but I'm not always exact, especially you have edges of sidewalks and stuff. You just want to be thoughtful to accommodate for that, but you're not ever there to gouge. So.
What's the industry standard for pricing?
Countertops, I'd say, for epoxy, and this varies a lot based on region. I'd say your lowest end areas in the U.S., and it's funny because I bet you some of these guys make more money than the guys in California, but I think you could probably make money if $15 a square foot you're breaking even. If you were to come out and build MDF and pour a single coat of epoxy over it, it'd cost you about $15 a square foot. I would say don't ever go under 35 or 45, even if you're on pretty decent size countertops, because you don't need to, and you want to be able to buy the right tools. Get a fest tool, get a track saw, get something so you can be dust free, you know, and do really quality work, have the right setup and whatnot. And you have guys up in like Montana and all around, and they're charging up to $100 a square foot. But I mean, that's very different customer bases, very different areas. So I charge commonly right down the middle at about $60, $65 a square foot around here. And that's, I just really don't have a reason to do anything for less, because I don't personally believe I can give somebody 100% quality for less than that. And I mean, I have kids, and I think I need to be successful and feed them too. So, and I'm tired of seeing contractors that don't get a job and they think like, oh, it must be my price, it must be my price, it must be my price. And the only thing they're bringing up is the price while they do shoddy work. If I pour my whole set of countertops and you're not like a huge fan of it, we're probably going to talk if you're not out of town or something. And I feel like I'd communicated. If I thought there was any lack in communication, I'm probably just going to come and try to communicate better with you and pour them again. And I'm not going to be mad, because I'm not getting ripped off or anything like that. I want to be able to be paid well enough to really leave you happy. I just poured for a total piece of shit. If you're watching, go F yourself. So, but I poured a whole entire shop floor. What was it? Was that 10,000 square feet or 9,000 square feet or something? I poured the whole thing again for him. I knew he wasn't going to pay, but there was like 2 or 3 little details that he could be picky about. One of them, he said he wanted white. Oh no, what did he say? He lied about the color anyways in front of my whole crew. And then later he said, well, you didn't put it differently in the contract. And I said, you're totally right. I didn't put it in the contract. I took your word for it in front of my whole crew and poured a different color on the spot without having you go back to the contract and sign it. And he did that on purpose, I know. And he laughed right in my face about it. And he's like, well, you better make it the right color. And I poured the whole entire shop floor, went in and sanded it again, poured the whole entire thing again, because I wanted to be right. And you want to know why I wasn't that mad? Because I already made fucking money off you. So and I wasn't mad, because I thought if he doesn't pay me and I do this again, I'm fine, because I'm profitable here and I don't have to make a bad decision. And I wanted to leave with good enough video that if he wanted to take it any further, he would be the one looking like an idiot, not me. So I took very good video in there and said, have a nice day, and we left. So, but that's where I see poor decisions come from low price, and the contractor that thinks the only fix is a lower price. And that's the guy that comes in with a shop vac that doesn't have a filter on it, and they try to turn it on and it dusts your whole kitchen, and they wouldn't even think of a HEPA filter or anything like that. They get something stuck in their eye, they have something on their hands, they're just dirty. How you do anything is how you do everything, right? I know you know that, so yeah. And like details, the Marine that doesn't shave his head or shave his face has a dirty rifle, so, and it goes across everything. So any questions on bidding, countertops, anything like that? I'd say I made more of my profitable, simple bids by far when I started going over tile, and I argued with my chemist on that, and he said, hey, we bond to ceramic and porcelain. I was like, that sounds stupid. Like, I do tile, like, tear that stuff out. And he's like, you can't tear it out. You have problems with it. And I was like, okay, that's fair. And he's like, just advertise it. And I actually, at the time, I had 25 tile setters. So I figured I was like one of the better like tile setters around, and I kind of knew what I was doing. I did really high-end custom work. I did commercial work. And I was like, that's just not right. And I remember laughing. I was like, I wonder what all the trailer houses were going to be pouring over tile. And I went to the home show, and I did it I was kind of frustrated. I thought, man, this is just going to be crappy. And I had a lady come up while I was setting up my home show booth. I wasn't even done, but I'd put up a little sign said, pour directly over existing tile. And it was for floor samples, because we were wanting to pour over flooring. And she goes, oh, I have a 2,800 square foot house. Can you just go do the whole thing? And I was like, yeah, we could do the whole thing. Oh, put me on your schedule. And I said, oh, I'll come out and price it out. And she was like, oh, just put me on your schedule. You know, after she heard like 30 seconds of a spiel, and she went and got somebody else. I think I had like 5 or 6 jobs off that before the home show started. And I started realizing you have all these customers that in a house, like her 2,800 square foot house, she had really nice granite countertops, beautiful cabinets, like really high-end trim, baseboard, everything. guess what she'd been getting told? Like, we're gonna come in, remove all your baseboard because you're wanting a different floor height, right? Now you're gonna be repainting your walls, resetting your baseboard, that's expensive. You're gonna be 3 weeks of tear out, you have in-floor heat, you have tile going underneath your cabinets that have a really nice granite set on them, so you either need to pop your seams, remove all this, and remove it all out because we're actually lowering your floor height, or put new toe kicks on your cabinets. So you realize how invasive things get really, really fast. And then she's like, so you're telling me you can raise the highest point of my floor by a 1/16 or an 1/8 of an inch because you can go in and really lightly grind any little rough spots on my tile with a very dust-free setup, come in and grout my tile in and pour epoxy over it. And you like 3 or 4 days and you're done to my whole, and you're like, yeah, I'm gonna take 7 days, but sure. Well, that's 2 weeks shorter than anybody else. You know, and if you have kids and you're trying to get people to school and everything, just the time alone is a major factor. And then they're done, they don't have any grout lines to deal with. So I couldn't believe the problems it solved and the solutions and the jobs it got me when I started pouring over tile. I ended up in just a totally different customer. And I have all these people that come here and they say, oh, I want to do garage floors. I want to do garage floors. So does every freaking person in the world. And they're doing them for $2 a square foot. And they're throwing flakes on it. And the metallic floors are so thin. If you start looking at reflections and thinking about things you think is pretty on Instagram, and then you start realizing now that you've been to a class and your stuff actually looks pretty, you'll start picking apart pictures really quickly. And you'll go to shows and be like, oh, you're okay with like lint in your top coats and crap? Well, it's because they're in the garage floor industry and they're struggling to get maybe $4 a square foot out of, I hope I'm not offending anybody, but I've literally trained like 7,000 people. So you see this pattern repeat itself and repeat itself and repeat itself. And then they have to be the lowest priced, because if you were right now to call in this town and say, hey, I have 2,000 square feet of tile, can you pour over it? You would have one person that would come out and bid it. I bet you it would be me or one of my guys, somebody I sell to, period. Like it would be a Diamond Coat installer or Diamond Coat as a company. If you said, hey, I have a garage floor, who can come out and bid it? You could maybe get 20, 30 bids, I bet you. I mean, I bet you every painting company is gonna bid it. If they're doing house painting, every single, and then at the end of the day, you'll be like, man, it's an 800 square foot garage, it has some issues, it's kind of big, I'll do it for $4,000, you know, you're $4.50 a square foot, and they're like, I can buy the kit at Home Depot for $230 and do the whole thing myself. And I mean, it fails, but that's your competition. And I would say, so get into a house and get in an area where it automatically excludes other things because they're not solving the same problems. And it's really fun to me. It's been really rewarding going into the more difficult homes because I've done so many floors and countertops for people that had no solution. Like all the showers I went over, those were such old tile, and it would have been so expensive and so invasive for them to tear out 9 huge walk-in showers and do everything. And instead, they could create any kind of damage they want, replace whatever valving, and then we come in and make like brand new marble on the walls for less than half the price. And right now, I don't know which one, if anybody's dumb enough to think the market's not crashing, but the market is gonna crash. And I know that sucks for realtors and people like that, but remodel contractors that have a less expensive but good solution that's high end, like this whole company was built during the last crash, and I couldn't believe the jobs I got, because when markets are good for 10 years straight and home prices are just increasing, every single home builder is getting contracts because they're like getting you for the largest quantity they can get you for. There's nothing that's really up in the air because every little penny's been accounted for. When everything goes up in the air, people start remodeling instead of buying new. They can't sell their house, they start fixing the house they're in, and that's when it's weird, but remodel contractors actually get really busy and really profitable, especially if you never gouge people. And that's something I got kind of known for, is I never gouged when it was super busy. So when the market crashed and everything, I had a really big crew and we were actually still very busy. And I got told by a lot of customers, like, you had the opportunity to gouge me and you never did. So we had all kinds of customers that just kept us for anything they needed done, even when it was slow. And we started some of the biggest profit we'd ever made because we started like pouring over whole entire tile houses and stuff like that and tile countertops. And I thought, holy shit, these are all the jobs. I did granite countertops and I would have never said yes to any of those jobs. So, but yeah. Any questions at all? Now that I overscared you about Formica and backsplashes, you never want to do it again.
There's one question I do have. I didn't understand the overgrout of the ceiling.
Like, you know how you have tile grout lines on all your tile and your counters? If you ever to just pour epoxy right onto that, it would soak right through. Like, your grout's very porous. So I always take that wall epoxy and we'll try to do a sample so you get to play with it a little. And you trowel that across with like a steel trowel and diagonally, so you get it as flat as you possibly can in there, and then sand that like smooth the next day or whatever. Make sure that you have that nice and level, and you want minimalistic in there too. And then I tape my edges on tile countertops so I can pour a little bit thicker, and I'll pour a liquid non-metallic base, because you don't see, like if you were to pour a metallic base over a contoured surface, you see the contour, because thicker metallic is darker metallic. But when you pour like white or black or gray or anything like that that's pigmented properly, if it's an inch thick, it looks exactly the same as an eighth thick. So I'll tape that off and just pour myself a perfect sheet in there. And now that my tile grout lines are essentially grouted with wall epoxy, or the non-sag epoxy, now that no epoxy can seep through those grout lines. So it might not be perfectly level, and you'll see some of them, but man, it'll look really nice when you get that final coat on there. So.
Do you ever have trouble with the existing grout on the old tile countertop popping up or lifting it?
Never, not if done properly. If you really actually if you actually put the epoxy on it, you're never gonna get it off. So yeah, and if you have like really smooth epoxy, yeah, if you have really smooth like glazed tile, don't be afraid to like lightly diamond grind, but use a vacuum setup, something. And I'm not against a shop vac or something, but make sure it has a good filter in it. Make sure it's not like you're not dusting the exit filter. Make sure it's plugged in correctly, your guard's set up on your grinder. And don't grind really aggressively. Just, you're literally there to scarify that surface just a little bit. And really you're looking for high spots, little high kickers and stuff, because a little corner of a tile goes up 1/4 of an inch. 1/4 of an inch poured across the whole floor, you just did a whole nother pour. So, or you could have took and ground that little high spot off and saved yourself a whole nother coat. So that's, well, thank you guys for, let's go ahead, and whenever you guys are ready, we can organize our samples in the back and lean them all up somewhere so you have space for these new samples. And I think we'll still pour one more sample before lunch. Yeah, lightly torch. Yeah, just make sure you have no alcohol down, which I think you're good. Thank you guys so much for joining today. I know we kind of lost you there because I get boring talking about details, but I hope I see you guys in a class soon, and thanks for spending your time here with us this morning at Countertop.